There are playoff berths that are on the line across the country in the NAIA football for the penultimate weekend on the schedule in 2025, including a number of teams that can secure a playoff berth this weekend. One of those could take place in Baldwin City, Kansas, where two of the hottest teams in the country are going to meet for an opportunity to go to the football championship series. Good evening. I'm Joey McWilliams. You are watching college football this week here on Midwest Sports Net, and I'm glad that you are along for the ride tonight. Listen, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to mix things up a little bit with our normal midweek slate as to how we present the news. So we're going to go with that just first. Let's talk about news really quickly. And also, I want to remind you, if you're watching us live here, and you know what, even if you're watching the on-demand version, let us know in the comment section from where you're watching, who you're cheering for. Leo is cheering for Benedictine, and I know that one. He's ready for the Ravens to fly high. Dave, roll Stangs. Some Morningside love from Dave there. So let us know, again, from where you're watching tonight. Take part in the chat. We have a great community here on Midwest Sports Net, and you're encouraged to be a part of it. Okay, I'm looking at the monitor, and it looks like the light's flickering. It's really not, so I'm not sure what that's all about. Anyway, we'll get on with what we're talking about tonight. News from across the countryside when we're talking about sports, specifically in the NAI. Trinity Christian College is closing. That's right. Palo Heights, Illinois, Trinity Christian College is closing. Now, they didn't have a football team. Trinity International did, and it shut down just a little while back, 2 years ago, I believe. And these are both teams that are in the Chicagoland Conference. Well, Trinity Christian not going to be open anymore. That doesn't affect what we're talking about here with NAI football necessarily, but it is news from around the sports landscape, and it's one of those things you hate to see that happen. So news, though, that is on the positive schedule, or on the positive stand, the upswing there, if we will. Bismarck State is restarting football. The Mystics will be playing football in 2027. It will be the third stint of football for the program there. It's been a junior college for quite a while and just reassessed and made its way into the NAIA for 2025, 2026. No football this season. Of course, they have joined the Frontier Conference and are competing in all of the sports that they offer: volleyball, basketball, other such sports like that. But in 2027, there will be football as well. And big news in the Frontier. Yeah, Matt, shout out to Matt, who has made it into the chat tonight. Appreciate him. It is big news in the Frontier. That will mean in 2027 that there would be 15 teams. But I want to go back to something we talked about this summer, because we relayed this message. It was 406 Sports is where I had seen this reported first, as they were visiting with the conference commissioner from the Frontier Conference, and Scott Crawford was saying, yeah, he felt like Bismarck State would have a football team very soon. I don't know if he was prescient or if he just was privy to news that most of the rest of us didn't know. However, he also didn't stop there. He felt like that there would be 16 teams in the Frontier Conference in the near future. So, Matt, there's something to think about there. This conference seems to get bigger all the time. By 2027, it will be, at least as of now, the biggest football conference in the NAIA, again, with 15 member schools competing there. Some of them associate members, but Bismarck State's a full-fledged member. It's just adding that sport. So there we go right there. All right, let's look at one more thing here really quickly since we're talking about news. The NAI F-ball, the media poll came out this week, and following week 10, Baker makes it back in at number 25, and Texas Wesleyan in at 24. I'm going to get a chance to watch Texas Wesleyan play before this season is out. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. Southwestern and Georgetown tied at 22. St. Francis moving back up, creeping back in through that top 25. Now, neither this poll nor the coaches' rankings have anything to do with playoff spots this year, but it's still nice to see those go around. All right, 11 through 20, there's Morningside in at number 11, Southeastern at 15 there. We're going to mention Southeastern a little bit later on. A lot of these teams we're going to talk about in the next segment. McPherson is one of those as well, in at number 16 in the media poll. And top 10 looks like this. A switch between numbers 2 and 3. Benedictine falls. Sorry about that, Leo. In the media poll, Kaiser steps into that number 2 spot. And I don't give my pick very often, but I actually had Kaiser a spot above that. So I know that you're number one until you're not. And yet it's just the last 3 weeks for the Vikings there in Des Moines, it's been a little bit of a challenge. So, and Sean steps into the chat just in time for me to say something not disparaging about the Vikings, but they've struggled a little bit, at least from the championship standard that was set in 2024. Now, they're still winning ball games. As a matter of fact, Grandview has won 68 consecutive regular season games, so no slight there. But I did move Kaiser up just a little bit. So I don't know, Leo, if that affected Kaiser over Benedictine necessarily, just my one vote. And there was a vote for Friends, by the way, at the top of the NAIA football rankings there from one of the media members. And I don't know that I would necessarily give it away, but he gave it away himself. Matt Schwartzler, who also works over at NAIAF Ball, he said he put Friends at the top. And having watched Friends in person, I have not seen anything that would give me evidence to the contrary. Sean, glad you are watching tonight. Get the win on Senior Saturday. Well, it should be and could be a very big game. So let's talk about that right now. We'll get to the schedule a little bit later on. We're going to kind of cruise through the schedule tonight. Want to make good use of time because we want to not bury the lead. We'll keep the graphic up here and go to these teams. There are now, and let me make this just a little bit bigger. There are now 20 teams who can, by winning out, lock up a playoff berth for this season. And all they have to do is win the remaining 2 games, and it doesn't matter what any other team does. So the magic number is 2, but specifically, we're talking about winning out. And in control of your own destiny means just that it doesn't matter what any other team does, win, lose, tie, or completely shut down. It doesn't matter. If you take care of business, you are in control of your own destiny. And there are 20 of those teams, and we will look at them right now. So from the Appalachian, Reinhardt, 4-0. The Eagles will take on Point at home and Pikeville at home. So Reinhardt, a little home cooking there. They played their last road game. The Eagles, if they take care of business at home, will get the playoff berth, the automatic bid from the Appalachian Conference. Pikeville still is in control of its own destiny as well. Now, again, shout out to the staff and administration in the AAC for making this the final game of the season as opposed to the first game of the conference slate. It's much better in this position. And you know what? If you're only going to get one team in, and spoiler alert, you're going to get only one team in, let it come down to the wire there. Let it come down to that final game, and these 2 teams meet, and that's what's happening. So Pikeville, even though they're 3-1 right now, the only loss came to Bluefield. Reinhardt, Bluefield, by the way, has 2 losses in conference play. So there can't be a 3-way tie right there. That means that Pikeville, if it takes care of business and wins against Kentucky Christian, which is not an easy task. Coach Aubrey has the Knights doing well, and that's a program that's on the rise, and wins on the road at Reinhardt, then they will get the automatic bid. Also from that, we may do a cough drop early tonight. Also from that, realize that would be the second year in a row, and they'd have to win out. It would be the second year in a row that Pikeville had made the playoffs with a 5-5 record. So I think that's pretty interesting right there. All right, let's move on to the next conference. We'll go in alphabetical order here. The Frontier West, and it's come down to this. Again, the penultimate weekend gives us Carroll and College of Idaho playing each other this weekend. And it says there, who they're going to play this week and next weekend. But honestly, since both teams are undefeated in divisional play, and because they meet in this game, this is not just a 1-game lead in conference play. The winner of this actually will lock up a spot in the playoffs, the automatic bid, because it's in essence a 1.5-game lead. Because let's say that Carroll wins over College of Idaho, moves to 5-0. College of Idaho's 4-1. College of Idaho beats Southern Oregon. Carroll loses to Eastern Oregon the next week. They would both be 5-1, but head-to-head, Carroll would have the advantage, and so the winner of this game will lock up a playoff spot in the 2025 Football Championship Series field. So it's all down to that. So that, by the way, that game is taking place there in Helena We're going to talk about that game a little bit later on as well. Frontier East, there is only one team that's completely in control of its own destiny, and that's Montana Tech. They're 9-0, are the Diggers right now, and you have to take on a Dickinson State team, which, by the way, actually stopped the losing streak, and probably not going to be an easy place to play there in Dickinson, North Dakota, and then home to Valley City State. So Montana Tech can lock things up with 2 wins. Dordt can lock things up with 2 wins. Morningside, though, still has control of its own destiny because Dordt undefeated in conference play, Morningside with the 1 loss. Concordia is the next team down there, and I don't see Robert in the chat yet, but we'll talk about Concordia a little bit too. But the Bulldogs have 2 losses. So if each of these teams wins next week, it's going to come down to the final game, Dordt at Morningside. So both teams still have their playoff opportunity, at least for an automatic bid. They're in control of their own destiny right there. Dordt again hosting Concordia this week. Morningside hosting Mount Marty this week, and the Lancers have been on a little bit of a slide. It feels like that the Bulldogs from Concordia are working their way back up. I don't think either one of these is an easy game, and the worst thing that could happen for either one of these programs is if they're looking ahead to that final game of the season, knowing it's all going to be on the line right there. So they both need to get wins this week. All right, moving on along then. Let's go from the Great Plains to the Heart, Grandview. The Vikings can lock it up, Sean, just by getting a win on Senior Saturday, but really need to take care of business from there on out. If Grandview gets a win over Culver Stockton, I believe that would be enough to lock it up because they already have the win over William Penn, and that's the only other one that would have a 1 loss there. Well, does Peru State have the 1 loss? We'll have the win over Peru State too. So anyway, it's all locked up for Grandview with a win over Culver Stockton in that. In the Heart South, there are 2 teams that still have opportunities to win out and get the automatic bid. As a matter of fact, and we will bring that up there a little bit higher so you can see, or a little bit larger, Baker is already 5-0 in divisional play. The last game of the season against Graceland is a divisional crossover game, so it doesn't count toward that. If the Wildcats get the win at home over Benedictine, then Baker locks up that automatic bid to the playoffs in Week 11. Pretty cool for a team who lost the first 3 games right out of the gate and has been amazingly hot since then, having won 5 consecutive games. And it just worked out on the schedule that those were all divisional games. So props to Baker for getting the wins when they need it. Now, Benedictine still in control of its own destiny as well because there are no divisional losses right now. So Benedictine goes on the road, takes on Baker. If you get a win there, then you get to host Mid-America Nazarene, and the Pioneers have had the Ravens' number of late. So that's been one of those things too, Leo. For Benedictine, they've had tough sledding against Mid-America Nazarene. Now, I realize it's a new coach. Coach Cordova's there. He's made a few changes, but the Pioneers still are a very strong team. So Benedictine has a lot in front of it, but still completely in control of its own destiny. To the KCAC, Friends is undefeated and really went through the tougher part of the division earlier on. Took on McPherson, took on Southwestern, took on Kansas Wesleyan, 1, 2, 3, got wins there. And realistically, not to be demeaning, but realistically, against Sterling and against St. Mary, both of them are going to be favorable matchups for Friends. Getting 1 win here should be enough, but you want to win out. And if you're Friends, you just want to win out anyway. You want to go in 11-0 because I believe the Falcons still have an opportunity to be playing to host 2 weekends in a row. I mean, not just the weekend they would get off in that first round, but I believe the Falcons could be playing for a top 4 seed. And if that's the case, should be hosting at least consecutive weekends after that first round bye. And who knows? They're pretty high in a lot of the indices that are out there that talk about the strength of the football teams this year. Definitely like going by the performance index and going Massey ratings in there too. Let's see, all kinds of things to look at. I mean, it's really nice to have that in there, and it's that the coaches' rankings are not a part of the system anymore. Back really quickly, we didn't get to the Kessinger. So to the Kessinger, Evangel 3-0. in divisional play. Should lock things up this week with a win if the Valor are able to beat the Threshers. They're at home against Bethel. They're at home against Bethany, and have gone undefeated against those two teams in the last 2 years as well. So Evangel with an opportunity there to lock things up. All right, we move on along now to the Midwest. Marion is the only team that's completely in control of its own destiny. Now, there's another team to talk about, and we'll get to that in just a moment, but Marion, with a win over Judson, which again should be a favorable matchup there, and a win at St. Xavier. And St. Xavier has something to be playing for. Well, all right, there are animals that have made it into the studio now. This could get interesting before it's all said and done. But Marion, though, completely in control of its own destiny, but can't lock things up until the final week. To the Mideast, Indiana Wesleyan and Siena Heights, both in control of their own destinies. However, won't be able to lock it up in its entirely until the final week of the season. If the Wildcats and the Saints both win this week over Lawrence Tech and Taylor, respectively, they get to play each other for a playoff spot. And how big would that be for Siena Heights? How huge would that be for the program that's in its swan song season to get to be playing for the opportunity to go to the playoffs and not only extend the season, but extend the life of the program at least one more week there. So that would be pretty cool. Charles in tonight in the chat, and I'll tell you what, we'll get to William Penn in just a moment. I'm going to save that comment. Graceland plays well in bad weather. Weather could be a factor in a few places around the country. Again, man, it's nice if it's a little bit cooler outside, but I hate it if it's going to affect the games. And these teams have worked so hard to get to a point where weather becomes a challenge in that. All right, Mideast, let's move on to the Mid-South. Bethel at 3-1 is in control of its own destiny. And you might be saying, wow, Bethel, they struggled early on, and they did. I mean, one of the losses was against a Division III opponent. The other loss was against Kaiser, and that was a forfeit because of, you guessed it, weather. So one loss in conference play, and the reason for sure that Bethel has its own destiny in its hands is because the other two teams in the Mid-South that have one loss, they're going to play them in back-to-back weeks. I mean, the schedule works out perfectly for the Wildcats if they're going to do something. If Coach Springer's able to get his team into the playoffs in his first year as the head coach, he just has to take care of business on the road at Campbellsville and at home against Lindsey Wilson. Now, I say that's all he has to do. That's a lot to do, and it's a lot to ask, but it's right there in front. Now, Campbellsville also is in control of its own destiny as well, because it takes on Bethel this week, and with a win there, then Bethel has 2 losses, so it would have basically a game-and-a-half lead right there. Then you go on, take care of business against Georgetown. You win both those games. If you're Campbellsville, you get the automatic bid. Lindsey Wilson factors in just a little bit, but again, one of those teams we'll talk about at the very end. Bethel and Campbellsville, each in control of their own destinies right now, win out, and you're in the playoffs. To the Sooner, 2 teams that are going to meet this week. OUAZ at Texas Wesleyan. They're in Crowley ISD, the home of the NAI Football Championship Series championship game on December 20th. And it really is all on the line there in that game. The winner would lock up the playoff spot, the automatic bid out of the conference. Now, if Texas Wesleyan wins, even with a loss against Louisiana Christian, again, that in essence game-and-a-half lead over OUAZ there, things work out, or there could be the possibility of a 3-way tie. But if Texas Wesleyan wins and wins against Wayland Baptist, then you get the automatic bid. Now, the reason I mentioned Texas Wesleyan right there is because OUAZ, a loss to Texas Wesleyan, doesn't necessarily knock the Spirit out of the playoffs. Come back and you win against Louisiana Christian. There we go. Let's just go ahead and bring this on up here full screen. This is what I've been waiting on for years and years and years. This is Ollie. This is Oliver. This is Oliver that is getting on the broadcast computer right now. You say hi. I thought I had locked the door to the studio. I did not. And Ollie likes to sleep on the broadcast computer sometimes. And he has actually gotten on Amazon and ordered things before when we weren't looking. So I'd rather him not shut down the broadcast while we're here, but that's what I was expecting. He was going to jump up here at some point in time. All right, let's go on back here Where were we? OUAZ not necessarily out with just one loss. And we saw the Spirit get into the playoffs last year with just one loss. So could it happen again? Quite possibly. All right. And one more conference there. We're moving along to the Sun Conference. Kaiser is the only team that is in complete control of its own destiny. Now, Southeastern, that's on the docket for this weekend. We'll mention Southeastern in a moment, and then you take care of business against Warner. Kaiser is 24-0 all-time in Sun Conference play. 24-0 all-time in Sun Conference play. You have to think that Kaiser is likely going to win out. All right, teams. Now, there were 20 teams right there. So there are 3 more teams that you look at that need just a little bit of help. Winning out is not quite enough. And let's talk about the scenarios here. One of them is Southeastern. We just mentioned Southeastern. If Southeastern wins out, it would go to 6-1. Kaiser, you have to think, would bounce back and beat Warner the next week. And then Florida Memorial, though, could factor in. Southeastern would need to get a win. It says versus Florida Memorial there. That's not true. They've already lost to Florida Memorial there. Southeastern, I believe, was playing Ave Maria. You need to get the win over Ave Maria, but you could have a 3-way tie. So if Southeastern beats Kaiser and then goes on to beat Ave Maria, it would likely need Florida Memorial to get a loss in there somewhere. And in a 3-way tie, don't know the scenario there, but you have to think everything favors Kaiser at that point. St. Xavier needs a little bit of help. St. Xavier 3-1, taking on Olivet Nazarene next week. You get a win over the Tigers there, that's a huge win. You get a win over Marion there, also a huge win. You would go to 4-1. Marion likely would be 4-1 at that point because I can't see the Knights losing to Judson in that game. It's a favorable matchup for Marion. However, don't forget about St. Francis of Indiana. And the Cougars could be 4-1 at that point as well. 3-way tie in conference play. Reached out to the Mid-States about the tiebreaker scenario for a 3-way tie. Haven't heard back to this point. So it's a team, though, that needs some help. St. Xavier could win out, but would be cheering for a St. Francis loss somewhere along the way. And one more team that could win out but need just a little bit of help, Lindsey Wilson. Lindsey Wilson could go to 5-1, defeating Cumberland and Bethel. If Lindsey Wilson defeats Bethel the final game of the season, it knocks Bethel out of the 1-loss ranks there in the conference. But Campbellsville could still also have only 1 loss in conference play. So if Lindsey Wilson and Campbellsville each are at 5-1, Campbellsville had the head-to-head. Campbellsville defeated Lindsey Wilson, giving it its lone loss of the season. So Lindsey Wilson would need just a little bit of help. So there are 3 schools that could win out and put themselves in a good position. However, there are also 3 schools that can't just win out and be in complete control of their own destiny. They need just a little bit of help there. All right. Robert made it. Better late than never. Go Bulldogs. Beat Dortz. Well, we'll talk about those Bulldogs here in just a moment. Leo giving a shout out to Ollie there. I knew that cat was going to make a broadcast one of these days. And I'm not getting up from this seat to go close the door, so it's possible cat could come back in again. All right. Charles says, watch out for William Penn. Watch out for William Penn. Well, let's talk about that just a little bit, okay? We've talked about all the teams that could get an automatic bid and could lock things up. Again, 13 automatic bids. There are a few that could lock things up this weekend. More of them need to go through the rest of the schedule, and it's going to come down to week 12 and all of that. But there are also those at-large bids, and I haven't really avoided talking about that as much. It's just a little bit easier to talk about the automatic bids because then you get into numbers, and the numbers don't lie. So it's just wins and losses, playing out a bunch of scenarios, and we know how things are going to work there. But what about those at-large opportunities? Well, I'm going to throw a few out there, and I'd love to hear what you all think about these. But as of right now, all things being equal, and we don't know what for sure is going to happen, these are teams that I think, and the first 2 are in the first order, and then after that, it's in no particular order. Whoever is the Frontier West runner-up, okay? So Carroll and College of Idaho, they're playing on Saturday. Whichever one of those teams loses, I don't see either of those teams losing the next week, you bounce back up. You still have a lot on the line to play for, and I think that the loser of that game would get the at-large bid. So we're talking now 3 teams at this point from the Frontier Conference. I'm not ready to give 4 just yet. Also, the GPAC, the runner-up from the GPAC. So if it comes down to Dordt and Morningside, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, again, a great season finale. If it comes down to that matchup, no matter who wins, I think that the runner-up in that conference, whether it be a 9-1 Dordt team or a 9-2 Morningside team, don't forget, Morningside had that extra game on the schedule because it played Benedictine back in week 1. So I have those 2 at the top. Then, depending upon how things play out, Lindsey Wilson's not necessarily in control of its own destiny, even if it wins out and Campbellsville wins out. Now, this is saying that Bethel's going to lose both those games. I think Lindsey Wilson would be in. I think Southeastern, even if it beats Kaiser, I think the 3-way tie favors Kaiser in that. Not for sure on that. Please don't quote me on that one. I'm not positive about that. But it looks like it would. I think Southeastern, if it loses to Kaiser or wins, I think Southeastern could be an at-large bid as well. I find it difficult to see a Southeastern team that's pretty high up in the FPI, a 2-loss Southeastern team not making the playoffs again. Last year, Southeastern didn't get into 2 losses, and I just don't see that happening again. McPherson, the Bulldogs, they're good. They're very, very good. And if McPherson wins out, you're looking at a 10-1 McPherson team. Coach Fiskus has done a fantastic job this season. He does every year, but he's doing a great job this season. Things are coming together. Just that one loss to Friends, I think McPherson would be in. William Penn, to the point there from Charles. Excuse me. William Penn, I think they're likely in if they win out. A 1-loss Statesman team that has played extremely well all year long. I think that would be, it'd be tough to get past them for some of these 2- and 3-loss teams. So I would think William Penn would be in. And then finally, and this may be a little bit, I don't know that it's a stretch. I think it's been tough competition for St. Francis of Indiana. And I think St. Francis might be that last team that gets in, or maybe not last team. I think that there are teams that would get in before St. Francis. So you're talking about a lower seeded team. And we know the seeds don't mean as much in the football championship series. And I'm not ready to make jokes about the seeds just yet, but they don't mean as much necessarily over the course of the series because it's not a true bracket. However, you get in that 13 to 20 spot, you're going to be playing on the first weekend, no matter what or where. So I think that St. Francis could be one of those lower seeds in a 17 to 20 spot there. All right. Then 3 other schools that I think need mention here because it could shake things up just a little bit. Concordia. Robert, to your point, I know you want to see Concordia beat Dordt this weekend, and, shout out to Coach Daverco and the Bulldogs there. You were mentioning Concordia last week, and wasn't ready to give my opinion on that. I've looked at it a few times. It's going to be challenging anyway around. I think even with 2 losses, it would be difficult to get Concordia in because you have a loss already to Morningside, and you're not going to get a chance to play Morningside again. You might get a chance to knock Dordt off, which you do get a chance to knock Dordt off this weekend, but if Morningside defeats Dordt the next weekend, the possibility still exists because of the 3-way tie with 2 losses, but there's a whole lot that has to happen to get to that point, and I'm not sure even in a 3-way tie with 2 losses that Concordia would be able to rise to the top to get that, and it'd have to be an automatic bid. I just don't see Concordia getting an at-large bid there. Hinchman, 21, making his appearance in the chat tonight. Hey, we've already given a shout-out to the Diggers, man. They are totally in control of their own destiny, and there is just we see no way that they don't make the playoffs and lock it up this weekend. Good to see you tonight, Hinchman, 21. Also, and this is a team, I've talked about them all year. I've talked about them in the summer, And if there was a team that could just sneak in because it's played tough opponents, played in a challenging division and conference, I think Dakota State, if Dakota State winds up as just a 2-loss team, I think you have to look at them. And I think you have to give a hard look to the Trojans and say, I don't know. They might just be there. So anyway, all right. And one more team. And this is where, Leo, you may want to turn up the volume on this one. What happens in Baldwin City on Saturday, or what happens if in Baldwin City on Saturday, Baker defeats Benedictine? Benedictine's been a top 3 team all year long. Benedictine would have at that point 2 losses, 1 to Grandview and 1 to Baker. Baker would get the automatic bid. So I listed off 7 teams there, but that's assuming Benedictine wins. Because if Baker wins, Benedictine, I mean, you would think the Ravens come back, take it out on the Pioneers the next weekend. Not a given, but you would think that the opportunity would be there. A 9-2 Benedictine team would definitely knock out, one of those teams that I was talking about there. I don't know about Southeastern. I would think that it is in the best interest of St. Francis of Indiana to cheer on the Ravens on Saturday. I mean, they have their own games to compete with. But fans of the Cougars need to also be fans of Benedictine on Saturday, because I think if Benedictine doesn't win, they're going to take an at-large bid. And, I mean, is it St. Francis? Would it be a 2-loss Morningside team that would get knocked out by Benedictine? Would it be a William Penn team that might have only 1 loss, but maybe not the same strength? So anyway, some factors that are there, just things to think about for this weekend. And we have gone 30 minutes in. We haven't even gotten into the slate of games this weekend, but I thought we needed to hit all those really quickly. So before we go any farther or any further, or whichever one that you choose to use right now, hey, thanks for watching tonight. I really appreciate you stopping by the channel. We enjoy college football this week here on Midwest Sports Net, and I want to encourage you, if you haven't already subscribed, please do that. We also, you can join the channel and help us out and support things here. We look to go to as many games as we can. We made the trip to Wichita this year, and that was last Saturday. And I have to tell you, Wichita, the folks there at Friends always treat me well, and whichever members of my family get to come up. It was just me this time, but I brought daughters before, brought my wife before. Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet has made more than one trip to Wichita, to whether it be for a Friends game or back to KCAC media football media days back when, and it's a great place to go. I meant what I said, and if Dave's still listening, and if Jeff Cutcher happens to tune in tonight, I definitely want a Sioux City trip one of these times, and I really would like to do it next year. So things like this, the channel's growing, and it's doing well. It gets better all the time. You can be a part of that. So just wanted to give a shout out to that as well. But thanks so much for watching tonight. This is the best community. This is absolutely the best community. You guys are great, and I appreciate you being part of a chat. And Robert says, yeah, it would be tough to think about the possibility of having just the 2 losses again, because that would be the 2nd straight year for Concordia. So that would be tough to think about, but that's the scenario that's playing out in my mind right now. So I just kind of feel that way. Let's talk about a few games. Then we're going to talk about coaches who have been successful this season, and then we're going to look at some cool numbers tonight for the Bet the Barn segment. And I hope everyone takes part tonight, because we have some fun ones. So stick around for that. Let's get through really quickly. Let's talk about all the games. We'll go over them right now. Southeastern 6-2. Kaiser's undefeated at 8-0. Kaiser 5-2 all time in this series. And think about this. The Fire was the last team to beat Kaiser in a conference football game. Now, that was back in the Mid-South, and it was a Sun Division game, but it wasn't a Sun Conference game. So there's some history there. Kaiser's one of 6 undefeated teams left in the NAIA. And let me go here really quickly. I want to pull this up, Matt. I'm trying to see what it says there. If Dakota State were in that position more frequently, I might agree. Too much like a yo-yo. Yeah, I get that. But here's the thing. You've got to get there at some point in time. They have been consistently meh, at least record-wise. Coach Anderson does a great job, but the record and the challenge, and you take on Dickinson State twice in a season every year for like the last 6 or 7 years, it's going to have an effect. So I think this year could be that breakout year. And on top of that, they did part of it with the quarterback they thought going in, and Trey Heddick coming in. Now, he wasn't all the way healed, so, he hasn't played in all their games either. So that's just something to think about. I think Dakota State's done really well. They've been my team to look at. All right, so Southeastern is taking on Kaiser. They're in West Palm Beach. Florida Memorial 5-3 at Ave Maria. 6th meeting between these two. Florida Memorial won last year by 27. Warner's 1-7. Thomas is 0-9. And I thought it earlier in the year that this might be the game that one team or the other was going to get a win. Well, Warner's already had a win. But consider this. Thomas is 0-9 this year. The Nighthawks are on a 14-game losing streak. The last time that Thomas got a win was against Warner. That was in 2024. It was 27-21. And I'd like to add something else to that. Thomas has 2 wins in program history. Both of them are against Warner. So even though Warner has the one win right now, Thomas with none, the Nighthawks, this could be a favorable matchup for Thomas there in Thomasville, Georgia. St. Thomas is 5-3. Weber International 4-5. St. Thomas has won 5 of the 6 previous meetings. Kentucky Christian playing well into November. The Knights are 5-4 and could have a say in the Appalachian automatic qualifying bid because they're going to take on Pikeville on Saturday. The Bears are 3-5. Xavier Malone continues to light up the numbers, and he is, as you might imagine, the leading passer in the country with close to 400 yards through the air each game. I think it's a little shy of 380. Points 3-6, and on the road at Reinhardt. The Eagles need to win out, and they really do need to win out. Now, last year was the first time in 10 years that Reinhardt didn't make the playoff field. So the Eagles want to get back there. It's a right when you're Reinhardt to play in the NAIA playoffs. Rio Grande is still without a win at 0-8 on the road at Bluefield. And this one could be interesting there in West Virginia. Bethel to the Mid-South, 4-3 at Campbellsville. Again, both of these teams have their destiny in front of them. The winner of this one is still alive for that automatic bid to the playoffs. If Bethel loses here, then the Wildcats are out of the playoff picture. I mean, no automatic bid, and the Wildcats aren't going to get an at-large bid this year. But think about this. This series is 11-10 all time, 21 meetings, and it's right at tied. Campbellsville won 14-10 last year, but Bethel won the previous 6 matchups. So there's a little history here, and a lot is on the line on Saturday. Cumberland 5-4 at Lindsey Wilson, and the Blue Raiders still with an opportunity not only for an automatic qualifying bid, would need some help to get that, probably need some help from Bethel to get that, but also a very real chance to be looked at for an at-large bid. The Blue Raiders are 6-2. Georgetown has found itself really out of the playoff discussion here. No chance for an automatic qualifying bid, and at 5-3, very little chance for an at-large bid as well. The Tigers, though, are going to go on the road to take on the Patriots, who are 4-5. University of Cumberland's 4-5. Georgetown 5-3. Lawrence Tech is 2-6 on the road at Indiana Wesleyan. Wildcats need to keep winning. And would an 8-3 Indiana Wesleyan team be an at-large bid? That's a question there, too. I would think, though, if you're going to get a loss, you don't want it to come against Lawrence Tech. The Blue Devils are 2-6, as we mentioned. Siena Heights still playing for everything. 5-3 on the road at Taylor. You need to get the win in Upland, Saints, if you're going to continue what could be a Cinderella story. Madonna's 1-8. Defiance is 2-7. Second meeting between these two programs, and Defiance needs a win. The Yellow Jackets have lost 7 straight right now and trying to take care of business at home against the Crusaders. Olivet Nazarene's 5-3. St. Xavier is 6-3. St. Xavier with a lot to play for, still with the opportunity. It would take some help, but St. Xavier still has an outside chance for an automatic bid. And you win 2 games. Well, if you win 2 games, still with that help there. But 8-3, that's not a bad look for St. Xavier. It's been a while since the Cougars have been in that playoff field, and so that would look good for them. Judson's 0-9. Marion's 8-1. The Knights have a favorable matchup with Judson. Third meeting all time between these two programs. and Marion has outscored Judson in those two meetings 116-12 in the last 2 years. Judson's on an 18-game losing streak. Marion is on an 8-game winning streak. These are clearly two programs that are heading in different directions. They meet on Saturday. St. Francis of Indiana, 7-2. St. Francis, Illinois is 3-5. Ninth meeting between the two. St. Francis is 7-1 all time. St. Francis of Illinois won 17-0 back in 2023 for its only win in the season. The Cougars defeated the Fighting Saints 28-20 last year. To the Heart, Benedictine 8-1. Baker 5-3. This is one of two the games in the NAIA this weekend. And Benedictine, really, you want to get the win here? Do you want to, depend on that at-large opportunity? You want to get the win here and then take care of business against Mid-American Nazarene. Baker has to get the win here. And Baker and Benedictine both come in on winning streaks. Baker's won 5 straight after having lost the first 3 of the season. Benedictine has won 7 straight after having lost to Grandview. It's the 40th meeting between these two programs. Baker owns a narrow edge, 21-18 all time, but Benedictine won 27-24 last year. And by the way, let's go back up a couple games. St. Francis of Indiana taking on St. Francis of Illinois. Hinchman is going out on a limb in this one. Hinchman 21 says, I'm picking St. Francis on that one. It's a good call. That's not in our Bet the Barn segment, Hinchman 21, but it should be. You need to stick around for that one. Culver Stockton still with opportunities, 5-4, taking on Grandview 8-0. Now you have to get the win here if you're the Wildcats. It's a tough place to get a win. Grandview, Sean, the Vikings have won 68 straight regular season games, considering that all 68 of those were Hart Conference games. Now, not necessarily divisional games, but all Hart Conference games. That's a pretty good conference run as well. Graceland is 3-5 on the road at William Penn. Charles says there might be some weather involved in this one. I think this is a tough matchup for Graceland. I really do. Coach Benavidez has the Statesman doing well, and it's a good passing game with Ramsey, but it's a very good running game. We've seen Destiny Lauren just right. Lauren. It's very southern Oklahoma of me to take a name like Loring and say it Lauren. So we make a lot of words either longer or shorter than they need to be here in the South. And people might say that Oklahoma is not South. I realize we're not deep South. I mean, we're not necessarily, well, I guess, yeah, Oklahoma is SEC country now, but there still is a little bit of Southern to our drawl. And so, yeah, I think I made Destin Loring's name into not really a contraction, but anyway, there was apostrophe where that G should be. The point is they have a good passing game and a good running game. William Penn was 4-6 in 2023, 4-6 in 2024. First 2 years for Coach Benavidez. They already have 8 wins right now. Definitely a program heading the right direction and could likely be in the playoff field. St. Ambrose is 4-5, and the Fighting Bees with Alec Ponder at the helm. I've been on the Alec Ponder train, I think, all year long, and St. Ambrose is starting to get it done. 3 straight wins, and in each of those games, the Fighting Bees have put up at least 40 points. Well, they're on the road at Peru State, second meeting between the two, and the Bobcats won 21-14 last year. Also, something we've talked about all year long. If Peru State can control the turnovers, the Bobcats are a very, very good team. Both of them 4-5 heading up to this matchup. Clark is 1-8. William Woods is 1-8. First meeting between the two, and we'll see how this one turns out. William Woods stopped a 13-game losing streak a couple of weeks ago with the win over Missouri Valley. Second win in program history, first win against an NAIA program. Mid-American Nazarene, 6-3. Missouri Valley, 3-5. 47th meeting between these two. And Missouri Valley, well, with a narrow edge, 24-21-1. Mid-American Nazarene won last year by 27 and has won 6 straight, though, in this series. Central Methodist has 2 wins already this year, more than each of the previous 3 years. 2-7 right now, taking on a 2-6 Missouri Baptist team. Third meeting between the two, and the Spartans have won each of the previous 2 matchups in the last 2 years. To the GPAC, and this one's a big one. Concordia 6-2, taking on Dordt 8-0. 18th meeting between the two programs. Concordia has a narrow edge, 9-8 all-time in the series. Dordt won 33-22 last year and has won 7 straight in the series. And that win for Dordt really was what kept Concordia out of the playoffs, Robert. And I don't know if you were watching the Bulldogs as much back then, because Concordia got the big win over Northwestern, but just couldn't get over the hump against Dordt. Again, 7th win in the series for Dordt, or 7th straight win in the series for Dordt. And those 2 losses had Concordia on the outside looking in. I don't know who that would have knocked out last year, but a 1-loss Concordia team with a GPAC schedule, you have to think that they were a lock for an at-large bid to get in. So anyway, Concordia at Dordt, and really like the way that Dordt has been playing this year. The offense has come up to be on par with, maybe not in every single game, but pretty close, what the defense does, and the defense gives the offense lots of opportunities. So Coach Benner doing a great job right there. Mount Marty's 4-5. Morningside is 7-2. 5th meeting between the two, and the Mustangs have won each of the previous 4 matchups, including a 45-6 win last year. And Morningside has scored at least 40 points in every game it's played against Mount Marty. So, Dave, are they going to be able to put 40 points on the board this week? By the way, Dave, I know that we were talking about different names that were seeing some opportunity in, the game against Doane. Looked like that Morningside had a chance, and Coach Ryan had an opportunity to play some other players that may not see some time. We didn't see Drew's name out there. We hope he's all right and good to go for this weekend in the matchup against Marty. So we're just keeping up with him. We don't want to speak out of school and give away any state secrets, but we just want to make sure everybody's all right. There are folks here we follow pretty closely. And Drew Sellon is definitely one of those folks that we follow here pretty closely on Midwest Sports Net. All right. So let us know, Dave. Doane, 1-7. Northwestern, 5-3. The Red Raiders are starting to look good. Made it back into the coaches' rankings this week. 43rd meeting between the two. Northwestern owns a 25-15-2 lead in the series, has won 8 straight against the Doane Tigers. Midland's 4-5. Dakota Wesleyan is 4-5 as well. Dakota Wesleyan got the big win over Mount Marty last week. Midland won last year, though, 21-20. A tough matchup between those two. Briarcliff, 5-4. Waldorf is yet to win this year. Waldorf didn't win last year either. Waldorf has an NAIA leading 22-game losing streak on the line in this one. 11th meeting between the Chargers and the Warriors, and the teams are 5-5 all-time in the series. Bethel's 3-6 at Evangel as we move to KCAC. And it's the 3rd meeting between these two. Evangel just needs to win out and take care of business, and the Valor will be back in the playoffs once again. Tabor at Bethany, both teams 3-6. 57th meeting in series history. Bethany won last year by 12. Avila at Ottawa. The Eagles are 1-8. It's been a little bit of a struggle this year for the Eagles from Kansas City. On the road at Ottawa, and the Braves are 4-5. 8th meeting between the two. Braves would like to change things up just a little bit because Avila has won 6 of the previous 7. And Dave says, hoping to be back in action this week, next week for sure. All right. Well, let him know that we give him a shout out here, and we're just keeping up with him. So we hope everything's all right there for Drew as the season continues to go on. And it will be a big, big matchup. You want to talk about all hands on deck for sure next week for Morningside. That's one of those things too. For Morningside, and for so many of these other teams, it's all on the line, these 2 games. And you look at the schedule. Let's just take the Mustangs again for a moment. You have a tough game this week, but next week's the one where it all could be on the line. You cannot look past week 11 to get to week 12. And 18 to 22-year-old kids, maybe sometimes a little bit older, but you just can't let down or look ahead there. Sterling is on the road at Friends. The Falcons and the Warriors meeting for the 81st time. Friends with a commanding lead, 51-28-1 all-time in the series, and won last year as well. Friends just needing to win out. And that rushing record all-time that Friends set last year is really, really in jeopardy because the Falcons just continue to roll with that ground attack. Southwestern 6-3, probably on the outside of the playoffs looking in, even with 2 more wins, but an opportunity to keep hope alive in Winfield at St. Mary. The Spires are 3-6. Again, Builders are 6-3. Southwestern's won 6 straight in the series. And let's see, I skipped right past McPherson and Kansas Wesleyan. Can't do that. 93rd meeting between these two schools, as it's been a tough one for McPherson. McPherson lost last year to Southwestern, and the Mound Builders made the playoffs going 10-1. This year, McPherson beat Southwestern, looking to go 10-1. And I think that if that is the case, the Bulldogs are definitely in the playoffs with the at-large bid. To the Sooner, the big game is the OUAZ Texas Wesleyan game, 6th meeting between the two. Texas Wesleyan has won only 2 of the previous 6 games. It's the 7th meeting between the two. Sorry. Texas Wesleyan's won only 2 of the previous 6 games, but they've been the last 2 years. 36-20 in 2023, 35-33 last year in 2024. I was at that game back in 2023. It was a big win for the program down there in Crowley. Langston's 2-6. Nelson is 1-7. Langston is Nelson's most often played opponent. 22 times Nelson has faced Langston and come up short 19 of those 22 times. Langston won 35-29 last year. Nelson has a 6-game losing streak right now. 5-game losing streak right now. Oklahoma Panhandle State at Texas College. The Aggies are 3-7. The Steers are 0-7 right now. Texas College won last year, but Texas College just has had a struggle of a season this year. Arkansas Baptist at Louisiana Christian. 4th meeting all time. The Wildcats have won the previous 3, including last year, 66-12. Louisiana Christian, well, the season looks like this. Loss, win, win, loss, win, win, loss, win, win. What's going to happen this week? If you're Arkansas Baptist, the pattern falls into shape for you, at least right there. But this, again, could be a favorable matchup for Louisiana Christian. To the Frontier, and the other of, another one of those big games. At least at the start of the season, and Henchman 21, if you're looking and listening to this, when you look back at the season and you say, okay, Montana Tech has some games that they need to win. They have some games that you expect them to win. And then as the season gets down, there's going to be that really, really tough game in Dickinson, North Dakota, as the Blue Hawks are just perennially good. Well, Dickinson State has fallen on hard times this year, 3-6 right now. And I'm thinking if you're the Orediggers, Coach Sampson has to have his team prepared to make the long trip to North Dakota and to stay focused this week. You can't let anything just slip on past. I mean, 1 loss here, win next week, you're still going to get that playoff spot locked up. But how big is it to go into the playoffs undefeated? And again, how big is it to get one of those top 4 seeds so that you can play at least a couple of games at home? I mean, you want to be bringing teams into the Mountain Time Zone. That's what you want to be doing. So Montana Tech can't afford to have a letdown. Montana Tech on a 14-game regular season winning streak as well right now. College of Idaho at Carroll. This is the other of the big games. The game of the week, the big one, 7-1. The Yotes and the Saints are also 7-1. Check this out. 15th meeting all time between the two, and they've both won 7 games apiece. Carroll won last year, 43-29. We'll talk about this game in the Bet the Barn segment. Rocky Mountain 3-5 at Dakota State 6-2. 2nd meeting all time between these two programs. Really no surprise right there. Valley City State's 5-3. MSU Northern is 1-8, and the Vikings and the Lights are meeting for the first time. Arizona Christian 1-7. Montana Western is another team that's 6-3, and it feels like it's a worse 6-3 than what that record is. The games they've lost have been to very, very tough opponents. Montana Tech, College of Idaho, Carroll, really tough opponents. But you look over there and you see that 3 in the loss column in the Bulldogs record is really just tough to think about. Montana Western's won both of the previous 2 meetings against the Firestorm, and you would think it would be a favorable matchup there. And there are people who believe Montana Western still has an opportunity to lock up the Frontier Conference's 4th playoff spot. I know I talked about Dakota State a while ago, but Montana Western still with that opportunity as well. I'm not sure I'm as high on the Bulldogs getting that at-large bid. Now, not saying I'm not a fan of the program. Love Coach Norris, love the Bulldogs. Palandry to Norris has been such a great connection, but I don't know that I'm ready to give that spot there. The good news for Montana Western is that nobody in Kansas City has asked my opinion yet. Someday, someday. All right, Simpson's 0-8. Eastern Oregon is 3-5. Second meeting between the two. Simpson, well, you need to get a win for the program. 17 consecutive losses since things have started there in Redding, California, and you know that the win is going to come sooner or later. Does it happen this week in Oregon? We'll find out. All right, the Blue Hawks, yeah, they have some players back after injury. Montana Tech needs to be ready to play. They just need to be focused. I don't know. I haven't seen them up close and personal, but in watching the video that I have seen, it's they have the goods, but you just have to be focused. You cannot go into Dickinson, North Dakota, and just think it's all going to be easy. All right, I wanted to drop one on you really quickly before we got to the Bet the Barn segment, and that was this. Man, there's some coaches that need recognition, and I know that they're going to name a national coach of the year when we get down to the final, portion of the playoffs, and they'll talk about the player of the year and the coach of the year. And I just wanted to pitch some names out there really quickly. If I were voting, if you gave me an opportunity to vote and said, all right, Joey, you have to pick 3 names and everyone else is going to pick 3 names. This is how I would do this. And I would say it would be tough for me to do 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to say 1, 2A and 2B, and they're all right up there at the top. But if I were looking at coach of the year, 10 weeks in and seeing what we've seen so far, we're heading to week 11, week 12 after that, playoffs after that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too in the chat. I would put at the top, I'd put Joel Pinner. I think he's done a fantastic job with Dordt this year. He has developed that program in his time there so wonderfully. And he brings quality players to the field, and they had the defense going for each of the last 2 years, and the offense struggled, especially last year, to keep up with it. The offense is there this year. He's been able to get a lot out of a freshman in Strickfaden, and Colton Cruz has come in. They've split time over the last 2 weeks, still come away with wins. And so I would say right there, I would put Joel Pinner at the top from Dordt, and then very, very close behind, and fractionally, infinitesimally close behind that, 2A, I'm putting Terry Harrison from Friends. He has done a fantastic job. And, we say it on the program at least once a week, it seems like. The Terry Harrison factor is a real thing, and it is. He had a lot coming back, and he's made the most of that. The defense has done its job. The offense gets all the attention, but I shout out to the defense. The defense has done its job, and I watched what it did against Kansas Wesleyan last week. Now, granted, it was a Kansas Wesleyan team that, they had an injury or two, but man, they were held in check. So both sides of the ball for the Falcons bring a lot to the table, and I would put Coach Terry Harrison in at number 2A, and 2B, I'm putting Kyle Sampson from Montana Tech. And so Henchman 21, I hadn't forgotten about Coach Sampson. Man, the Diggers from Butte are good, and they're firing on all cylinders. And Henchman 21 says this weekend has been circled. So call it payback. We'll bring that one up there really quickly. Yeah, it's looking for payback in Dickinson, North Dakota. So we'll see how that all plays out. What do you guys think? Who would be your coaches or coach of the year if you had to pick that out there? Love to hear your thoughts on that as we move to our final segment of the night, which is the Bet the Barn segments. So we've got enough people in the chat. Definitely, you guys need to participate tonight. And if you're watching this on the replay, video on demand, then put it in the comments section. Let us know your picks. 4 things, since Vegas didn't do its job in giving us numbers and lines about these games, well, we here at Midwest Sportsnet have decided to take it on ourselves and put some things out there to bet that fiction. It's a made-up barn. Actually, the carriage house is real. It's a barn, but it's a made-up barn. So if you're going to bet the barn, and Charles, if you're still watching, Charles is ready to bet a turkey leg or two. We can bet a lot on these things. So let's go. Here we go. Last week, our winners were Jeff and Matt. They each got 3 out of 4 right. This week, let's go with an over-under to get started, okay? We have an over-under to get started, and it goes to a game in which a playoff spot could be on the line, likely on the line. I believe the winner of this one has that game-and-a-half advantage. So playoff spot on the line in this one in Fort Worth, Texas. OUAZ taking on Texas Wesleyan. Now, last year at this time, we would have put this number higher. So we've got an over-under on OUAZ, who can flat out put points on the board, but they haven't done it as much in the last 2 years when they've gone to Texas Wesleyan. We go back and look. I gave those numbers just a moment ago. The last 2 years, OUAZ has been stopped by Texas Wesleyan, scoring only 33 and 20 points. I think they're going to put more points on the board this time, and I think Texas Wesleyan is going to put points on the board there at home. So we have the over-under on this one. What are you going to take? 62.5 points. Does OUAZ get stopped once again against Texas Wesleyan, or does the Spirit, are they able to break that and put some more points on the board? Now, don't forget, this is a total, so it's OUAZ and Texas Wesleyan as well. I'm not saying that the Spirit has to put up 63. So let us know in the comment section. We will put that comment up on the screen so we have proof of your pick. So you take an over-under. Go ahead and say OUAZ on this one. OUAZ over-under. OUAZ over-under. And, wow, there we go. Here we go. Everybody's came in at once. Charles says OUAZ, break it, over. All right. Robert, going to take the over on that as well. Henchman 21, taking the over. Dave, taking the over tonight as well. Leo, taking the over. Wow. Matt, also taking the over tonight. Man, I feel like if this were on game day, we'd have a graphic for somebody to go through. I don't know. I think it's a good number, but I don't know, if OUAZ is going to do it. But, we really haven't been stopped that much this year, and they have momentum. So let's see. I want to make sure I'm on record as well. OUAZ. I was thinking the over anyway. I'll go ahead and take the over on that as well. I need to be making up points against some of you guys anyway. I'm definitely not in the lead overall. So everybody has the over on this one, 62.5. Thinking that number was a little low then. All right, let's move on to the next one here as we take that one down. All right, this next one, this is a prop bet. Now, this one, you get 3 choices here. Okay, so let's talk about this one. All 3 of these teams need to get wins, not only on Saturday, but next week as well. Things need to go well for all 3 of these teams. And I'm talking about Pikeville, I'm talking about Indiana Wesleyan, and I'm talking about Morningside. 3 teams with opportunities as the season winds down. Now, why did I pick those 3 teams? Because those are the top 3 quarterbacks, at least passing yards per game in the NAI. Of course, Xavier Malone for Pikeville leading the way, Arjun Lothe from Indiana Wesleyan, and Zach Chevalier, because we like saying Chevalier here on the channel. Those are the 3. Each team really needs to have a win this week. Now, I know they need to win next week too, but you can't let up this week. So, your pick. Who has the most passing yards? Pick one of these 3. They still need to get the win. Who has the most passing yards on Saturday? 3 options here, guys. Just pick Malone, Lothe, it's Lothe, or Chevalier, and you can just put Chev on that one. Zach Chevy. All right, let's get those comments up there so we have them on the board. Henchman 21 going with Pikeville and Xavier Malone. Why not? The guy, he put up 437 yards, accounted for 7 touchdowns last week, 8 if you include the pick 6 he threw. So Henchman 21 saying Malone. Robert. Okay, Robert's going with Zach Chev. Leo taking Chevalier as well. Matt's going with Chevy, so he's in on that one. No surprise here. Dave's taking Chevy on this one. Charles, hey man, you need to go back and vote in the other one. OUAZ, Texas Wesleyan, over under on 62.5 points. Charles is taking Chevy there. Okay. Hey, that's all right. I understood what you meant. I completely got that. I think it's all about the defense in this one. Because I think each one of these quarterbacks are just really going to light it up. And I don't know I want to take Chevalier, but you did, Charles. Okay, sorry. I want to take Chevalier, but I'm having to go with the guy that I've been pushing for the numbers all year long. And that's not now, by the way, I push for Chevalier number all year long too. Don't get me wrong. But man, I've been seeing these numbers up there as well. I'm going to go on record. I'm going to say Malone, Malone. Pikeville needs his win. And Indiana Wesleyan needs the win. It's not something, I don't know that they need to get all the points. And Morningside, I don't know that they need to get they want to win as well. I think Pikeville, I think they may need to get the points because the Kentucky Christian offense, I mean, Jackson Wasik has been lighting it up as well. So it could be a shootout in Pikeville. And so I'm going with that one right there. All right. Hinchman, yeah, he's the mailman. Man, can I pause there for just a second and say, isn't there a difference between 80s and 90s power forwards than the guys who play in the NBA today? That, I mean, power forward may be loose terminology. Karl Malone, the arms on that guy, David Robinson, Charles Oakley, I mean, Patrick, these guys were huge. So anyway, yeah. Here we go. Oh man, hey, listen, being an instructor on the college level now, and the kids know I'm in my 50s, and I've got athletes in my class too, and a few of them, and I talk about, you know, the days that, I mean, Clyde Drexler is to this day still my favorite NBA player. It's just a different looking game than it looks right now. All right, where are we? We've gotten 2 down. Okay, let's do 2 more here really quickly. Let's go here. Did we get that out there? Oh, I didn't put it out there. Yeah, who had the most yards? Malone, Lothe, or Zach Chevalier. All right, let's go back to an over-under really quickly. One of the games for Saturday in Baldwin City, Benedictine and Baker. Now, here's the thing, guys. The last 5 or 6 meetings, it's been hovering right around 40 points. I realize both these teams, you got Jackson Dooley, who can, you know, score points at will. You've got Truman Julesgaard, who has come alive as the season's gone over. And I know how to use the word literally. I believe he's literally gotten better with every single week. So we could be looking at a lot of points, but I don't think we are. And this is, again, a matchup. The last 4, 5, 6 matchups, it's hovered around 40 points a game. So we're going to put the line at 44.5. I think the defenses could have something to say in this one. Now, tell me what you think. Do you think that Dooley and Truman Julesgaard are enough to bust that one open? I mean, man, we blew out 62.5 points. Are we going to say 44? That's a weak number? I don't know. Got to get back to my comments line here. All right, let's go. Okay, Baker or Benedictine, either one of them. Doesn't matter. Leo wants to put Benedictine, I'm sure. So, okay. Yeah, Shaq would have been a great left tackle. I think you're right. I don't know. Did he play football in high school, or did he just one sports star? I mean, it doesn't matter. Benedictine. Dave's taking Benedictine over. Leo's taking the over. Yes, Robert, it is a really low point total. I'm just telling you, recent history says this game may not get into the 40s. So we're going with, and I'm not saying I'm trying to get someone to take the under there. I'm just throwing that one out there. Over on Benedictine from Hinchman 21. Charles is taking the over. Matt going out on a limb, taking the under. Robert also taking the under, going against the grain. This was one, and originally I had this at 40.5, and I thought, no, I just think these quarterbacks can do a little bit more. I think, and here's what I'm going to go with, and I'll type it in there really quickly. I think you could be looking at a 24-21 game. And so if with that in mind, that would be 45. So I'm going to take the over. Going with the groove there. All right. And finally, this one is, I think this one's a lot of fun as well. So let's get out of the comments, back to the, get that off there. Back to the banners. Here we go. Last prop bet. Which Caden is going to come out on top? Now, We're talking, of course, about Carroll's Caden Hewitt. I know it's spelled Hewitt, but it's Hewitt. And then College of Idaho's Caden Young. One of them starts with a K. One of them starts with a C. So I just made up a spelling so that we weren't favoring one side or the other here. Which Caden is going to account for the most touchdowns? Is it going to be Caden Hewitt or Caden Young? There's a lot on the line there in Helena on this one. Which Caden? Yeah, I just totally, again, made up a spelling. You should spell it the right way for the quarterback that you're picking here. Okay, let me give you some numbers here. Let's give you some numbers here really quickly. Caden Hewitt, 269.7 passing yards a game, 27 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Caden Young, 185.6 passing yards a game. He's had just a little more than half that many touchdowns, 14 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. I don't know this is going to be a high-scoring game necessarily because I like the defense from both these two teams, but somebody could light it up there a little bit. By the way, this one could be a push, okay? They could both – we're talking about passing touchdowns. We're talking about rushing touchdowns. And if even one of the coaches gets fancy and, you get the Philadelphia special and Hewitt or Young rolls out after pitching the ball back and they receive a touchdown as well, that's all right. Okay. Leo getting fancy with the K and the C. Yeah, I saw that. So which one are we going to do here? Let's see. Charles is going with Caden Young, taking the Yotes there. Also Caden Young, KC Caden Young. Matt's going with Carroll's guy. Not even going to try to pick Hewitt. It's 4 letters. It's not hard to spell, but yeah, it is. So Matt's going with Carroll's guy. Hinchman's going with the Young on Caden. It's a cool spelling. Totally made up, but it's cool. Robert's going with Hewitt. Shout out to Robert for spelling Hewitt. Got it right. Anyone else? Did we miss anybody? I think we have everybody in there. Maybe. I don't know. I didn't see Dave's name. Did Dave get it? All right, Dave. I don't know if you see it or not. If you had to go, though, Dave. There we go. Going with Hewitt also. I was just going to say get it in the comment section later. I know sometimes you all have to go, and we're starting to wrap things up right here. Man, you guys are cool, sticking around for past the hour mark tonight. I'm going to go with Robert says, for the record, his pick was he was not swayed. He was not swayed. All right, I'm going to go with, man, I heard such good things about the quarterbacks that Coach Purcell had in his stable this summer, and he was really high on all of them. And that Caden Hewitt came out of there was a big deal. And by the way, I think Caden Young, he was biding his time. He stepped up. He's doing a fantastic job this year. This one's at home. I think that Caden Hewitt accounts for more touchdowns in that. So there we go. All right, Leo, good question there. Do we lose on a tie? No. Well, yeah. Nobody gets the points on that one. There can be a push. So, but I'm glad everyone went ahead and took a chance on this one. Didn't say it was going to be a push. There could be a push on that one. So, passing touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, possibly receiving touchdowns. Hey, we get fancy and, somebody does like a Levi Torgerson and runs back a punt return or a kickoff return. That's all well and good. All right, that is it for the night. Man, there's a lot of good football on the line. Remember, some of these games, there will be an actual punching of the ticket, if you will, and there will be teams that make it into the playoff field. Baker's one of those. Could be Carroll or College of Idaho. I mean, a lot of them will get their tickets punched, and then there are some more that just stay alive for one more week and keep on going. So lots of things on the line on Saturday. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And last thing really quickly, and while you're still here, that's leading me to some programming notes for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be at least home watching football and getting all these NAI football games in this week. The next 2 weekends, I'll be broadcasting on the road. We're going to get a chance for some Midwest Sports Saturdays on location. get a chance to watch one more football game on site as well. But what that also means, I'll be calling volleyball for the Sooner Athletic Conference, the semis and the championship the next weekend, and the weekend following that, the entire tournament of volleyball for the Great American Conference. So we may shift up a couple of days as to when we have our midweek, and we may or may not even get to do a Sunday, because I think I'm going to be on the road in Arkansas calling college soccer. Wow. So anyway, we'll see how it all plays out, but I'll keep you guys posted on that. If you can make it live, that would be great. If you have to watch the replay, man, that's fun as well. You guys are the best. You are absolutely the best. God made you well, and you are awesome people, and it is a lot of fun to get to visit with you twice a week. Man, we got to keep this going. Robert, best time of year, playoffs. Said in the that was Mora. It was Jim Mora. Is who it was. Now, Herm said it too. He did. Herm said it too, but the original one I'm thinking of was when Mora was with the Colts. And you should look that one up, because I'm sure you'll recognize it too, Robert. Playoffs? You want to talk about playoffs? I just hope we win a game. But yeah, anyway, that's a fun one. And it's on YouTube. I have seen it too. So, all right, guys, that's it. Hour 16, fun night. Everyone's Bet the Barn segments. Well, you know what? The hay is now in the barn. I think that's the way we need to close it out now. The hay's in the barn. So it's been bet on, and we're all going from there. Henchman 21, take care, everybody. And God bless you all tonight. Appreciate it. We have a new graphic there as we close out tonight. So new members, if you haven't joined already, think about it. If you haven't subscribed, oh my goodness, that's free. Subscribe to the channel. Be a part of what's going on. I still believe we're going to get to 5,000 by year's end. So we'll see how that happens. I'll tell you this much. If we do, you'll know it's a God thing. You'll know it's a God thing. All right. God bless you all. You guys have a fantastic night. Leo, thanks for being here start to finish. See you guys later, and look forward to visiting on Sunday night.